Welcome to WPVM series on local and regional elections. Today's candidates are competing for North Carolina Senate District number 49. The 49th district, like all North Carolina state legislative districts, has been redrawn by Republican legislators and will cover central and southern Buncombe County, including Asheville. The candidates today are Julie Mayfield and her opponent, Kristie Sluder. Kristie Sluder will be the first to give her introduction, and then Julie Mayfield.
Good morning, Buncombe County. I hope you're doing well out there today. My name is Kristie Sluder. I'm a candidate in the Senate District 49 race, and I hope to be able to be of service to you come January. I'm a lifelong resident of Western North Carolina. I have been in Buncombe County for 36 years. And I know the struggle is very, very real for you guys out there. I know that the rents are high, the wages are low, the options are limited. And I know that we need to see a lot of improvement in our wages, in our options for employment that is secure and well paying, that we need options. We need to improve our school system and our infrastructure. I'm lifelong, and I'm really tired of hearing that people are going to fix our infrastructure and it never gets done. We're still riding on potholes. We're still lagging behind in so many areas. So I want us to be able to live in a clean, safe, healthy, functional, and thriving District 49. I come from Graham County, out Great Smoky Mountains, Nantahala National. Grew up with four brothers. We were a mountain family. I was fortunate enough to graduate from through a series of unfortunate events, actually, to be able to graduate from Oak Hill Academy in Virginia. I spent my early days here in hospitality. I entered higher education in '94, got my bachelor's in social work. I specialized in children and families, family systems, addictions, and corrections. Today, I hold a master's degree in clinical social work. I'm a licensed clinical addiction specialist. I'm a certified correctional healthcare professional by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care. I know that we have problems with our families first and foremost. It's one of my top priorities, being able to support family functioning in our communities. Crime is a huge problem for us in Buncombe County. It's not where it needs to be. We need to do more with it. Homelessness and indeed vagrancy is an issue in Buncombe County. And so being able to address the crime, the housing, the income, and our quality of education is huge for me. Also, access to health care. So it is a huge, these are the priorities I have. And I'm available to you. You go to my website, sluderforsenate.com. My number's on there, and I will answer the phone. Thank you for your time.
All right, I'll just dive in. Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Mayfield. I am the incumbent senator for Senate District 49. I was first elected in 2020, so this is my third election for this office. I very much appreciate the voters sending me down to Raleigh to represent Buncombe County and the city of Asheville. I've worked on a number of things over the last 4 years, and as a Democrat in a Republican-controlled legislature, have managed to get a number of things passed and a number of things done, which is not normal for a Democrat. My priorities for the coming term are some pretty big ones, but ones that are very important for Buncombe County and for the state. So the first on that list is housing. I am leading a bipartisan, bicameral working group that is going to be coming up with a slate of housing policies that we could adopt at the state level that will increase the supply of housing generally and affordable housing specifically. And the effort there is to find those policies that will be acceptable to Republicans and Democrats across the board in both houses. The second issue that is of primary concern for me is healthcare, particularly here in Western North Carolina. With HCA's purchase of Mission Hospital, we have seen a continued decline in the quality of care at Mission. We have seen the exodus of over 200 physicians, hundreds of nurses, and that is impacting the residents of Western North Carolina on a daily basis. So I have a number of bills that I'm working on one I introduced last year that would essentially have prevented the sale of Mission Hospital to a company like HCA. We just want to make sure that that can never happen again going forward in the state of North Carolina. The one that I'm working on right now is focused on reining in the corporate practice of medicine, which is actually a national problem, not just here, but we are, in my view, a poster child for the negative impacts of the corporate practice of medicine. And then my third priority for the year is going to be focused on second chance legislation. So this is creating or eliminating really barriers to people coming out of prison, eliminating barriers that allow them to be the best version of themselves. So those are my priorities. There will be many other things that I work on, but that's where those are the big bills that I'll be focused on. Thanks.
So Julie just went into her own work on housing. What can North Carolina General Assembly do to increase affordable housing for the communities? Kristie, Sluder first.
Well, I think that we need to first we need to invest in infrastructure. You know, it's no good building on a rotten foundation. And again, if we don't have modern infrastructure to support the type of building that we have, then it's going to be building on a faulty foundation. So we really have to make sure that our infrastructure is there, it's up to date. We want to be a modern city. We don't want to be 1930 with our sewer and our water. So first of all, we have to invest in infrastructure. And I keep hearing that, and it never gets done. So we need to prioritize that. Asheville has a dilemma with housing because we have a move in to move out rate of 3 to 1. So for every one person moving out, we have 3 moving in. We do have to make available the inventory in our housing market. We need to make it available responsibly so that we don't destroy the beauty that we live in, that we are being sustainable in our approach to development. I'm very big on that. Being a native of this area, having been here for generations, come from generations, the beauty of our mountains are unsurpassed. So we need to build in a sustainable way. And I really like the idea I've been hearing about, I've been looking into it, which is middle housing. I think that being able to incentivize the development of that space between urban and suburban living would be an asset to us, which is being able to, build multiplexes, duplexes, courtyards. These are things that we had in the past. I think it's things we can bring back again. I think that if a builder is going to come here and is going to, build up our, take our farm space and build up our mountains, then they need to invest in our communities as well. So there needs to be accountability with the builders. There needs to be availability of affordable housing. We need to look into the idea of middle housing, and we need to make sure that we're not destroying what's beautiful about where we live.
So I would actually agree with Kristie on all of those things. And there's a real difference, I think, between what can happen at the state level and what can happen at the local level. At the state level, the kinds of things that I'll be focusing on are making it easier for people to build that missing middle housing, accessory dwelling units, duplexes, quadplexes, eightplexes, and frankly, building those in every zoning category. Single family zoning is one of the reasons that housing is so expensive, and we need to allow for those small types of multifamily units in every zoning category. That's just what we need to do. People don't like that, but we need to increase density where we already have infrastructure, so that we are protecting our working farms and forests and the rural part of our county and our state that everybody enjoys and that frankly helps feed us. So density is one, and again, we can do some state level policies around that. The state can also incentivize builders to build more housing through tax breaks and tax credits. They can incentivize local governments to create affordable housing programs. The city of Asheville actually has more tools around affordable housing than the vast majority of governments in North Carolina. So we need to help other cities create those programs and those tools. And then we also at the state level need to help fund them. Affordable housing is expensive, period, end of story. The market is not going to solve this problem. And if we want to create housing for our teachers, for our firefighters, for our police officers to be able to live in our community, the state and the city are going to have to subsidize that. And so there can be, again, incentives to and grants to local governments. The state also can better fund the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, which helps to fund many, hundreds, maybe thousands of units of affordable housing all across the state every year. So those are some of the things that I'll be working on at the state level.
So does Asheville have a crime problem, and what should North Carolina General Assembly response be to that crime problem? Julie Mayfield first, and then Kristie.
Sure. So I think, we saw an increase in crime all across the country, in basically every community, rural, urban, everything, during COVID and in the wake of COVID. We also know that crime wave is ebbing, and national crime statistics are down, local crime statistics are down, and that's verifiable from the Asheville Police Department and from the Buncombe County Sheriff. There's one category of violent crime that's up, but everything else is down. The General Assembly has done one thing just to finish that thought. So it's going in the right direction. And what we also have now is a great partnership between our police department and the sheriff's department in a way that we've never had before. And we have different kind of folks responding to particularly mental health crises and mental health calls where the police frankly have no business being. We now have the ability to send other people to those. The state can help by, again, funding and incentivizing local governments to create those community responder programs. Many communities don't have that. They're expensive, they're time consuming. But that is one thing that every community could benefit from. The other thing, and this is one thing that I helped push through last year, is expanding the capacity of our police department by allowing non-sworn officers to respond to vehicle crashes. Our police officers spend about a third of their time responding to vehicle crashes, and that is a waste of an officer. It's a waste of their training and expertise. There are just many better ways that they could be spending their time. And through my advocacy, which started the day I showed up at the General Assembly last year, we finally got a bill passed that allows local governments to create these vehicle crash investigator, responder and investigator programs. Any municipality across the state can start these, and the city of Asheville is heading down that road. So that will increase our capacity at the police department pretty significantly as well. Thanks.
Kristie? Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. So we can look at the nuances of crime rates, this category, that category, 3 years over the previous 2 years. But the reality of the matter is that the crime rate in Asheville is twice that of the nation statistically and twice that of the state. We may be going in the right direction in some areas, but we are not going in the right direction in the overall areas. And the reality of the matter is that many on the left, including many leaders in Asheville, worked very hard to discourage our police force just a few years ago, to the point to where they had less than half of their staff operating, and they have a huge vacancy rate now, even though that is improving because we've seen what happens when our police presence isn't in our community. Asheville currently it still stands at about it's about a 45% vacancy rate of available officers. So it's not improving to the degree that we need it to. Asheville also has taken on the sanctuary city mentality. And unfortunately, and me being a friend and a fan of our sheriff, it is not okay to adopt a sanctuary city style of policing in our community, where an illegal immigrant commits a crime and is not held for ICE, or if ICE has a detainer on an immigrant, an illegal immigrant, that they're not held for ICE. In so many ways, we are aiding and abetting criminal behavior. Ron Houston, and you all probably know about, most of y'all know this, he was arrested so many times for violence. He even shot a deputy in the master's office a few years before he was released. And then he went on to commit, cause the death of 2 people, violent murder of 1, and a complete, crime spree. So when it comes to treatment for offenders, which happens to be the world I live in, penalties are a treatment for offenders. And our community of leaders on the progressive left, especially, because many of them, including my opponents, worked to approve sanctuary city laws and worked to discourage police the support of our law enforcement. So we need to cooperate with ICE. We need to fully fund our sheriff's department. We need to make sure our citizens are safe first, and that where there's anger and violent behavior, that there are penalties for that behavior. It's just not happening. We're adopting a codependent style to try to fix them instead of letting them answer for what they've done. We need penalties as a part of treatment to reduce recidivism, and we don't have that.
Davina, I'd love a minute to respond to that.
Okay, all right.
Great, thank you very much. So, I have never been a supporter or an advocate of defunding the police. Those words have never come out of my mouth in an advocacy standpoint. That there were other people on council who supported that, but that was not me. So that allegation is simply not true. I have been a supporter of our police department. As I've said, a supporter of expanding the capacity of our police department, supporter of our sheriff's department. I have been a huge advocate for these community responder programs that, again, help ensure that the right people are responding. And I don't have any problem with criminal penalties. We have a lot of criminal penalties. We hold people responsible, but I am also a big believer in things like our Veterans Treatment Court and our drug court that give people who are in that cycle of, crime and drugs and violence and jail a path out. And the other thing I was going to respond to is, it's easy. So I will also say that the city of Asheville has zero to do with the court system and the jail system. So it doesn't matter how progressive people are on city council, they have no influence on that situation. It's a complex situation with multi-levels, and the particular person that Kristie mentioned, why that person was out of jail, you could say, well, I do believe the DA asked for a higher bond, but ultimately it's a judge who makes that decision about whether bond is available to that person and what that bond is. So it's not appropriate to be tagging progressives in Asheville and Buncombe County with anything related to how people get in and out of prison, because the decision makers, the elected officials in those two jurisdictions, the county commission, the city council, have absolutely nothing to do with that. Thank you.
So, Kristie, do you want to respond to that? Try to keep it under 2 minutes so we stay on time.
Yeah, sure. So I wasn't responding to Ms. Mayfield as a defund the police advocate, but as a sanctuary city model advocate. Okay, there's a difference between those two things. So just clarifying on that. Also, our city council has a huge influence, especially the progressive, which the whole council is progressive. In Buncombe County, our city, our county, and most of our state legislature are Democrat. We only have one Republican representative out of all of our major seats right now. So at the city level, encouraging our police, discouraging our police force to the point they were calling it organic defunding of the police, which means discourage them to the point where they don't want to come back and then don't replace them. So we have huge recidivism rates in Buncombe County because we refuse. It is a very complex problem with the judicial system, with the courts, with the DA's office, with the sheriff's department, with the city council, and how they treat our city police and how they fund our city police. How we need a unified front on, hey, if you're going to be violent, aggressive, or abusive in any way in our town, you're going to get a penalty. It's not going to be a social worker that shows up for you. It's going to be a police officer. And that's what we need. Our community needs to know they're safe, and we're not. Our crime rates overall are atrocious. So we need a unified front on penalties for aggressive, abusive behavior. Penalties are a part of that treatment. So yes, our city council, our county commissioner, our sheriff's department, all have a role in how we address crime in our community. And at the current approach is putting so many people at risk. The one category that I believe we're looking to surpass this year of all the crimes is murder. If we have 2 or 3 more murders in this town this year, it will be the highest rate. It'll be the highest rate. So in Buncombe County, currently, the statistics are abysmal. If you look at the Watchdog, if you look at the city data, if you look at TripAdvisor, Asheville ranks in the top 10 of all cities in the country. So we're not doing it right. We're not supporting our police. We're not funding our police. We're not penalizing violent criminal behavior. Our recidivism rate is too high. And city and county and sanctuary city policies have a huge effect on that. And I don't think our citizens want that. I think they want safety first.
And again, just to clarify, the city and the county have nothing to do with criminal penalties. Zero. All of that is determined at the state level.
Okay, so what kind of issues can you agree with your opposition? Julie.
Well, I think we agree a lot on housing. I was very happy to hear about that. We agree, it seems, a lot on increasing the density of housing in places that are already developed and trying to preserve our farm and forest land. I think that is, I think that's important for a lot of people in this region. And frankly, even if it's not important, it's what we need to do to address the housing crisis and the affordability crisis. I also heard a point of agreement in Kristie's opening statement about jobs and wages. We absolutely need, higher wage jobs here and higher wages across the state. I think we are getting some higher wage jobs here. Things like, our big manufacturers, Linamar, Pratt and Whitney, all of those are increasing the average salary, and that's putting pressure on other employers to increase the salary. I also have twice now in the 2 terms that I've been in the General Assembly introduced a bill to increase the minimum wage to $15. Our minimum wage is still, $7.35 or whatever it is. Absolutely unacceptable. Cannot make a living on that. And I'm sorry, if you're going to work full time, you should be able to make a living and not live in poverty. And the key way to do that is to put more money in people's pockets. And that means raising the minimum wage. Republicans in Raleigh have refused to even give that bill a hearing. They're simply not interested in that. It's a very, Republicans in Raleigh are employer friendly and not worker friendly. And that is to the detriment of folks, certainly folks in our community. So those are at least two areas that I think we have agreement.
Kristie.
Yeah, and I would have to echo. I love that, and I think that Julie and I both care about the community. I think we're both, dedicated to the well-being of the community. I think we just have different approaches at achieving those goals. I also think that we need to look at the minimum wage. How do you live in a town with the cost of living as it is? Where and live on $7.50 an hour. You cannot do it. Who can live on that? But I think that what we need is a formula for the minimum wage that will not pressure the mom and pops to have to pay a higher salary. I think that we need to incentivize employers I love Pratt and Whitney, Linmar. People are just clamoring. Well, not enough of them. I think they still have staffing shortages there too. But those good paying jobs, we need to incentivize that. We need to set a minimum wage standard for employers who net a certain amount. We need a formula that will keep the pressure off of the real small business owner that's making below a certain amount of revenue a year. So if you go over a certain amount of revenue a year, then we need to require or look at implementing a minimum wage standard so that we can vote. I keep saying this, it's both. It's not either or. I think we need to support employers, incentivize employers, draw good employers, and then also support our people who need to work and make a living. It needs to be both. It's not either or. So I think a formula would be the right approach to implement a minimum wage standard starting at $15 an hour. There's plenty of employers in this community that can start people at $15, $16, $18, $20 an hour. Walmart and Target are one of them. Where are they starting their people at? These big national chains, these box chains, they can do better. And I think they need to, and I think that we need to protect people in our community by setting a minimum wage standard formula for employers that way.
Okay, so this is going to go to Julie first and then Kristie. What threats and opportunities does AI present to North Carolina, and what role can the North Carolina General Assembly play?
Yeah, it's a great question. Very, very clear and present danger in my mind. We started to deal with it at the very end of this year's session this summer, but we just didn't have time to get it right. But there was language in a bill that would address the use of AI in political campaigns and elections. And that, I think, is the place to start in governing this, because AI has become so difficult for people to detect that people can create videos and audio recordings that appear real, and even experts sometimes can't tell the difference. So the language that we considered was requiring any advertisement that used AI, or anything that a political campaign puts out that uses AI, to have a notation that it uses AI, similar to this ad is approved by or paid for by. I think that's a start. There are other tools that are out there. I went to a seminar put on by Microsoft about all the tools that they have, and there is a way to actually embed sort of metadata into photographs and background that will show viewers and listeners where that photograph or video was taken, where that audio recording was made, And so we might start requiring political campaigns to include that data with anything that they post, so that people know that it is real and they can point to the day and time it was created, and they will know that it's not AI generated. That I think is the biggest fear that we have, and I think the first place that the General Assembly can take action. There probably, AI, I mean, it's already all around us. It is not always nefarious. Where I think we need to be focusing is in those places where it is nefarious and where it is being used intentionally to mislead and deceive the public.
Yeah, so I would just completely agree with Julie on that. AI can be a blessing or a curse. And we need to be focusing on the areas where it can be used in a malicious or deceitful manner, and absolutely can and will be used that way. I think that at the General Assembly and also at the national level, there needs to be language that mandates that the ones who develop this software and the ones who are marketing this software are also held responsible to ensure that the consumer is made aware that this is an AI generated video. If they are putting it out there, if they're making money on it, if they are advertising to consumers with it, whether it's political or if it's for any type of branding or commercial use, that the makers of this software need to be accountable for how it is perceived by the public. So again, there needs to be language in any type of legislation that would address AI to include the software developers. They're the ones who are putting it out there. They need to be the ones to ensure that it is being presented to the public as such. And there needs to be penalties again. If they are intentionally allowing their software to mislead or deceive people, then there needs to be stiff penalties for that. So disclaimers, yes, that they're mandatory if it's AI, and also that Google and Meta, especially Meta and some of these other global corporations that are developing this software, there needs to be language in our legislation that says that if they do not inform the public, or if they're not responsible for how their product is used, that they'll be held accountable for it.
Okay. What can North Carolina General Assembly do to help improve K-9 education in North Carolina? Kristie Sluder first, and then Julie Mayfield.
So, supporting public education is something me and Ms. Mayfield would agree with again. So, the funding of our public education needs to increase. We need to support our teachers. Teachers are a vital part of our daily lives. And Buncombe County has one of the highest turnover rates for teachers in the state. As a matter of fact, I think there's only one other county that has a higher turnover rate, maybe two, Jackson and McDowell, I believe. But, when the job is so hard, the pay is so little, and the cost of living in Asheville is too high, it just doesn't make it worth it. And, I think our teachers have been strapped with a pseudo babysitting job. So, well, let me just say this, it's more of a symbiotic relationship between parents and teachers. Teachers go to work to educate, parents go to work to provide for their children. But only 46%, around 50% of our children are growing up in two-parent homes right now. So we have a lot of, we have the highest rate of behavioral disorders that in the history of our country. And I do believe it's because our nuclear family is shot. There's such a large percentage of children who are stressed by not having the protection, the benefit, the blessing of a mother and a father in the home. I think that our behavioral disorders are on the rise, and our teachers are having to deal with that. So we need to support legislation that would not only increase funding for our schools and for our teachers, for our public teachers, but also, and I would advocate for school choice too, because I don't know any middle class parent that does not want to choose where their child could go to. Every middle class parent is always trying to figure out how to get their kid the best education possible. So I'm for school choice. I'm for fully funding, increasing the funding for public education. But we've also got to do something to stabilize our families, because our children, the teachers are having to deal with the fallout from what's going on at home a lot. Our nuclear family is a disaster. We need legislation that will provide aid to families in need, and we need to continue supporting single parents. So again, it's a two-pronged approach: support the parent, support the teacher, and that's what I would do if you sent me to Raleigh in January.
So there's a lot of agreement there as well. I completely agree with increasing funding for our public school program, for our public school system. And that starts with teacher pay, as Kristie said, teacher pay, and frankly, teacher respect. I can just tell you there are a lot of legislators in Raleigh that don't respect public school teachers and what they do, and they feel that. So we need to show them that respect by paying them what they deserve. We also need to increase per pupil spending. I think North Carolina is either at the bottom or just maybe just out of the bottom of per pupil spending as a percentage of the state's GDP. And, that's ridiculous. We have our state's economy has grown. We have several $1 billion in savings, far more than we need for our typical rainy day fund. So we have the money to invest. And for folks who know about the Leandro case, which is a long running case around the quality of education in North Carolina, we have a plan that lays out how our investments should be made, and the legislature simply refuses to fund it despite a court order. So if we invested in the Leandro Leandro plan, we would do great. I am not a fan. So I am a fan of school choice. I am not a fan of vouchers. We're fortunate here in Buncombe County. We have a lot of school choice. We have City of Asheville schools that anyone can go to. We have Buncombe County schools that anyone can go to. We have charter schools. We have, the high schools have relationships with AB Tech, where students can start taking community college classes while they're still in high school. We have magnet schools. We have regular schools. We have language immersion programs. We have lots of options. We do not need, here in Buncombe County, the state paying for private schools. And that's what vouchers are. We don't need that. And we definitely don't need it across the state. School choice is an illusion in many counties in North Carolina. There are many counties, some significant percentage, 40, 60, something like that don't have a public school. So private school vouchers don't do those communities any good. The only thing they do is draw funding away from our public schools. And I want to be clear about how that happens. That happens in two places. Number one, when students leave public school and go to a private school, that school loses the state allocation for that child. So that is money out of their pocket. And then the other way, of course, and is that the money we allocate to vouchers, and we just allocated another $430 something million, or maybe $80 million for private school vouchers, most of which is going to go to parents who already send their kids to private school. That's money that, again, could be invested in our public schools. I also want to mention, the question was around K through 9, but everything I said applies to high schools. And then we also need to be investing in early childhood education before kindergarten, and our childcare system, which is the workforce behind the workforce, and will allow more folks, more adults to go to work and create income for their families.
Well, that was my bad if I said K through 9. I should have said K through 12. I apologize. So, Julie, can you take a couple of minutes to explain what Leandro is about? Because I've heard this myself time and again, and I frankly don't understand it. Can you give us a Cliff's Notes version, and then Kristie, you can respond.
Happy to. So the Leandro case is, as I said, a long-running legal case in the state of North Carolina. Leandro is the name of the plaintiff in the case. That person was a child when the case was filed. That person is now in their 20s, I believe. And the claim in that case was that North Carolina was not meeting its constitutional obligation to provide every child with a sound basic education. That's the language out of our state constitution. We are required to provide that, and because of the inequity in the way that schools were being funded and in just the amount of funding that was going to schools, the state was not meeting that obligation. And so that decision was made, that conclusion was drawn by a court, so the plaintiff won. And then the question was, how do we remedy it? And about 4 years ago, I think it was a court-ordered task force created a plan that laid out the investments that needed to be made to bring our public school systems across the state kind of up to that level that they thought would be required to ensure a sound basic education. And that plan was not cheap. I think it was around $7 billion, but those would be investments over time. And then of course there would be continuing investments. Those investments would continue, but it was things like teacher pay, per pupil spending, increasing staffing in areas like mental health and other places where schools are desperately in need of staff. So it was a whole range of things. And if people want to look it up, they can just Google Leandro or Leandro plan. And the problem that has happened is, again, the North Carolina Supreme Court said to the General Assembly, fund the plan, fund it. You have to fund it. And the North Carolina General Assembly has said, you can't make us. So it gets into a separation of powers issue where, you have one branch of government ordering another branch of government to fund something, and the legislature says it's our job to allocate money and nobody gets to tell us how to do that. So there's nowhere to go from here with the current leadership.
Kristie?
Make sure she can.
You muted?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You just disappeared for a minute. I want to make sure you was there. I believe that every child deserves the best education they can get, and I believe that every parent deserves the opportunity to decide where they want their child to go. In North Carolina, that is not happening, and in North Carolina, our public school system our funding of our public school system is not meeting the standard. And again, the support of our children is not meeting the standard. The support of our parents are not meeting the standard. I love the idea of school choice because, again, I don't know of any middle-class parent or working-class parent that would not want the opportunity to help send their child to a school that they thought might benefit their child more. In the school, responding to the idea that this only helps wealthy families send children to a high-priced public school, the voucher system runs from the number of people in a household from 2 to 12. And to get the full support of this program, a family of 2 who made $37,000, up to starting at $37,000 a year. If you make $37,000, this program will help you. That's a family of 2. It would provide up to $7,800 of funding for your students, for your child to be a student at any school that you choose. For a family of 12 to get maximum support, it is $137,000 a year. Nobody that I know is thinking that a family of 12, and earning $137,000 a year is wealthy. I'm just not buying that. And again, I want parents to have choice where they send their students, and I want our public schools to be fully funded too. Now, going back to the idea that if you fund a student and they leave and go over here, that it's that school that's losing money. Well, the reality of the matter is that that school is also being relieved of the burden of that student. So allocating for that student in their budget is not necessary. So it's just, it's not. It's like taking water from one cup and pouring it into another. So the funding doesn't decrease if the student leaves that particular school to go to another school, then that school doesn't have responsibility for that child to have to work and allocate for that child's education. So it's just moving the funding to a different place. It's not reducing the funding. And let me just say this too. There was a backlog of 55,000 people who had put applications in for the school choice. Parents want the opportunity to send their child wherever they can send it. And I think that this program makes it available. And I think we could do it without neglecting our responsibilities to public schools.
Davine, can I respond to that a little bit? So the voucher program, as originally envisioned, as it originally enacted, was only for low-income families, to give low-income families some additional options about where to send their kids. And that was true until this past year. And this past year, we eliminated the income cap. So families making millions of dollars who send their kids to private school, who already send their kid to private school, can get voucher money. It's not as much as a low income family. I think it ranges from $7,000 something for a low income family to maybe $2,000 to $3,000 for wealthier families. But the point is, we are using taxpayer dollars to give to wealthy people who already send their kids to private schools. There was originally in the program a requirement that your child had to have been in public school the year before, so that this would be an affirmative change. That requirement is also gone. And so last year, or in the 2022-2023 program, which had those other limitations that I mentioned, there were close to about 30,000 applicants. This year, we have 72,000 new applicants. 72,000. So that is more than double the number of people who were in the program already. And many, probably most of those people are absolutely in upper income brackets, over $150,000 a year, over $200,000 a year. And many of them are already sending their kids to private schools. We do not need to give taxpayer money to families who have already made and can pay for private schools. The other problem with vouchers is that there are absolutely no requirements around the schools that get this money. So there are no requirements about teacher certification or teacher qualification. There are no requirements around curriculum. There are no requirements for academic standards. So and 70%, I'm just going to say it, 70% of these schools are Christian schools that are allowed to discriminate on the basis of race, disability, LGBTQ, anything like that. So, and we have no idea what is being taught in those schools and what those kids are going to come out in the world knowing. They're not on, it's a terrible program the way it is set up. You could conceive of a voucher program that is set up differently, but this is a one-way ticket to, again, millions, hundreds of millions of more taxpayer dollars into the pockets of wealthy families.
Okay. Let me just say that I think it's a cheap shot to target Christians as some kind of formidable risk for children. Number one, I think that the body of Christ in this country, in this county, in this community has served this county very, very well. And so I think that making Christians out to be some kind of risk to any part of this community is a falsehood. I think it's disparaging, and I think it's completely inappropriate. Secondly, the fact of the matter is that parents, Ms. Mayfield wants to say that parents are not capable of deciding what they want their children taught. That's another disparaging thing. It's like saying that people in the African American community can't find a way to get an ID. I think that is a complete slant on that community as well. When it comes to voter, being able to vote. So I really think that my opponent underestimates the intelligence and the viability of parents to make their own decisions about where their children go to school. Secondly, the fact of the matter is that I really want to know what the average income of the people applying for these vouchers are. I'm going to make it a point to find that out. When I look at this scale, I see the maximum income of someone being able to be awarded a full $7,400, a family of 12 making $137,000 a year. Now, to get some help, you could go up to $618,000 a year. I'm not opposed to putting a cap on the limits of income at all, because I am working class. I am middle class. I am not wealthy. I'm not from a wealthy family. I understand the struggles of people driving the 1994 Toyota, trying to live in this community, trying to get their children ahead, the struggle they face as a family or single parent, and the struggle that our community has with not only crime, but also with education. And I have no way to believe. So that just proved my point too. When you have 72,000 people that have applied for this program, that means that parents want the opportunity. So I completely disagree, and I'm completely disturbed by the idea that you would make that kind of remark toward Christian servants in this community, and toward the families that they serve, and toward the parents. Now, and that is exactly where she and I part way. We don't make differences between faith or religions. We don't make those differences. In the Christian faith, you have the right and obligation to choose what you want to do, and we are the ones who have been advocates of that. When you look at ABCCM and you look at United Way, you look at Red Cross, it's just a farce to say that Christians are
Kristie,
parents and children.
We need to move on. Julie, I'm going to give you about a minute and a half to respond to this, and then we have to move on to the final, and then our final statements.
Sure. I mean, I don't have any problem with Christianity or any religion. My problem is having those two things combined in a governmental, in any program where government dollars are at play. I have no problem with Christian schools, none at all. I just don't think taxpayer dollars need to be going to support those schools, again, because those schools are not held to any of the same standards that public schools are. They're just not. I have no problem with Christian schools. It's just taxpayer dollars going to them. And just a couple of other statistics. People think that vouchers are like, the panacea, and they're really going to help, poor people in rural communities. And again, they're not. The top, more than half of all voucher applicants are in 10 counties. And those are all the 10 counties that have big cities in them. So these are leaving rural counties behind. And 10 counties provide for nearly half of the voucher schools, almost 50%. And there's a huge concentration in Wake County. And I will tell you something else, and this just gets to the reality of the situation, is the top 10 schools in Wake County that receive voucher funding are owned and managed by one person. He has also spent about $100,000 in investing in Republican candidates in this year's election alone. So you can see how this works, how this cycle works. Vouchers are available, again, well, they are not helping, and they are not helping our rural communities, which is, of course, the communities that most of our Republicans represent. And there are states like Texas where the rural Republicans are pushing back, and they're recognizing that this is going to hurt that investing in vouchers hurts their schools. So it's not a panacea, and there, again, to Kristie's point, there did used to be a cap, an income cap. There is no longer an income cap on who can receive vouchers. You simply receive less money.
Okay, all right. So then our final question is, what one good idea do you appreciate from the opposing party? Kristie Sluder first, and then Julie Mayfield.
So, I will tell you what I love about Julie, and I do, because I don't know that there's anybody probably, within 10 miles of all of us that love our mountains as much as Julie does. So I highly respect her work to protect them. I remember being a child thinking, I don't want to go to heaven. I don't want to go to hell. I want to stay right here. I grew up at the head of Nantahala. I looked out the Smoky Mountains, and Nantahala was behind me, and I know what we have in our mountains. So I really appreciate her willingness to protect them. I will say that I wish Joyce Kilmer had been protected a little more. We lost the virgin hemlocks over there. I have hemlocks standing in my yard today because there's a simple solution that would have killed the beetle that killed our hemlocks. So, but I love her advocacy for our environment, and I appreciate it. So, I do respect the work that she's done around ensuring that our public schools are fully funded, which is what I want. I want our public schools fully funded. We need to raise our investment in education, and we need to raise our investment in families. So I would say there's two things there. I really appreciate the work she's done around the environment, and I appreciate the work she's done around education.
Yeah, and I would sorry,
excluding Christians from it.
I would echo that. I appreciate our agreement on those things. The other thing, and we haven't talked a lot about this, is the fact that Kristie has spent her life in providing mental health services to people who need them. And we are in a mental health crisis in our country and in our state. It was not great before COVID. It's a lot worse since COVID. And the state legislature made a huge investment last year, almost $900 million, in expanding mental health services across the state, and it's still not enough. So I appreciate the fact that Kristie has spent her life there, and she has firsthand experience about what people need and what kind of services would be helpful. And I particularly appreciate the place that she has spent a lot of time and that's in the criminal justice system with justice involved individuals, because frankly, our jails and prisons hold more folks with mental illness now than any other institution. Our jails and prisons have become mental health facilities, and the state is absolutely not investing like it needs to in those services in our jails and prisons. I just appreciate anybody who spends time in that setting and helps the people who are there, because our world and our system is arrayed against those people, and we need to be doing more to, again, help them become the best version of themselves when they get out of jail and prison. And Kristie has been a part of doing that. So I appreciate that.
Okay, well, now it's time for closing statements. I want to thank you both very much. You've given some very interesting answers and posed some big challenges that we're facing in our community. So, Kristie Sluder, if you'll go first with your around 2-minute closing statement, and then Julie Mayfield.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion. I think it's important for us to be able to find common ground. I think it's important for us to acknowledge, what we don't agree on and what we're willing to fight for. As your representative, I would first and foremost be willing to fight for your safety. Number one, you have to be safe in your own community. Asheville's crime rate, we're in the top 10%. If you combine all cities nationwide, our crime rate is too high in the big picture, especially in violent crime, in the overarching picture. So safety, public safety, income. We need better incomes. I will fight to get you better incomes. Housing, our housing crisis has to end. Families are struggling. They can't survive this. It has to end. I will bring ideas on that. And also in education, I want you to have the opportunity to give your child the best education you can have, that child can have in a safe community, whether that's rural or urban or suburban, that you have options, and that you have safety, and that you have, you know, uh, you know, uh, that you have peace in your homes, and that you have peaceful neighborhoods, and that you're able to live a quality life in a beautiful setting. Um, and so if you have questions, you can go to my website, sluderforsenate.com. My phone number's on there. I will respond to you. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you to the host.
I'll echo that. Thanks for the forum. Sorry, Dr. Cooper couldn't be with us, but Daveen, you've done a great job. And I will just say again how much I have appreciated representing the people of Buncombe County in Raleigh. I love this job. I feel like, and I say to people all the time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now, working on the issues that are most important to Buncombe County. You know, I don't want people who are perhaps not of the same political party and persuasion as I am to think that just because I'm a Democrat, I'm not able to be effective. I have worked very hard over the last 4 years to build relationships with the Republicans in the General Assembly and in the Senate, and I have done that very effectively. And I have had all the bills that I introduced that are not just messaging bills, the bills that I really want to get passed. I always have Republican co-sponsors, at least one, often two, if I can get those. I work very closely with those people to move things through the system and get things signed into law. And I did that with 8 different issues this past year, during this last term. And I will do it again next year. So I have those relationships. I have been asked to co-sponsor bills with Republicans as well. And so as this conversation pointed out, we have a lot in common, and we just need to find those places of commonality, and that's where we can get some things done. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you both very much, and I will end the stream, and good luck to both of you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.